I still remember the moment I realized my sister didn't forget to save me a room. She chose not to. The wedding lodge was supposed to feel magical, pine trees dusted with early snow, warm lanterns along the wooden paths, laughter spilling out of the grand hall like a movie scene. It was the kind of destination wedding people talked about for months. My sister, Hannah, had been planning it like a queen staging her coronation. And I, her older sister, Claire, had been trying to be supportive, even when support felt like swallowing glass. I arrived late in the afternoon after a 6-hour drive, exhausted but determined to show up. I carried a garment bag with the dress Hannah approved for me, a small gift, and that familiar hope that maybe, just maybe, this weekend would feel like family. Inside the lobby, guests were checking in, smiling, hugging, sipping champagne from crystal flutes. The receptionist looked up brightly. "Name? Claire Bennett," I said. She typed. Her smile faltered slightly. Then she typed again. And again. She murmured. My stomach tightened. "Is something wrong?" I asked. She glanced toward the back office. One moment. I waited, shifting my bag in my hand. Around me, people chatted about room views and hot tubs and wedding weekend itineraries. Finally, the receptionist returned with an apologetic look. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. "We don't have a reservation under that name." I blinked. "That's impossible," I said. "My sister booked rooms for the bridal party. She told me mine was arranged." The receptionist hesitated. "She booked a block, yes," she said carefully. "But, your name isn't listed. All rooms are assigned." My chest went cold. "No room?" I repeated. She lowered her voice. "We're completely sold out." The words didn't feel real. I stood there, stunned, watching my breath fog in the lobby's warm air. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe Hannah had forgotten. I pulled out my phone, forcing a laugh. "I'll call her." Hannah answered on the third ring, voice bright and distracted. "Claire, are you here?" "Yes," I said slowly. "I'm at the front desk. They're saying I don't have a room." A pause. Just long enough. Then Hannah sighed. Oh, that single syllable punched harder than any insult. "Oh?" I echoed. Hannah's voice lowered, as if she were explaining something obvious. "Yeah, so, about that." My stomach dropped. "You forgot?" I asked. She laughed lightly. "Not exactly. It's just, we had a situation." "A situation," I repeated. Hannah exhaled. "Mark's business partner came last minute. He's kind of a big deal. We needed to make sure he was comfortable." My fingers tightened around the phone. "And you gave him my room." Another pause. Then Hannah said, breezy, unapologetic, "It's not like you need luxury, Claire." My throat tightened. "You're my sister." "I know," she said, almost impatient. "But it's my wedding. I can't have important people inconvenienced." Important people. Unlike me. I stared at the lodge's pinewood walls, suddenly feeling like an intruder in a place I was invited to decorate, not belong. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked quietly. Hannah's voice sharpened slightly. "Just figure something out. There's probably a motel nearby. Don't make this a thing." Don't make this a thing. The phrase families use when they've already decided your feelings are irrelevant. I swallowed hard. "So you didn't forget." Hannah sighed again, annoyed now. "Claire, stop. I'm busy. Be happy for me." And then she hung up. I stood frozen in the lobby with my phone pressed to my ear long after the line went dead. Behind me, the receptionist whispered, "I'm really sorry." My face burned, not with anger yet, but humiliation. A group of guests walked by, laughing. One of them glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Because everyone knows the person without a room is the person without importance. I forced my feet to move, walking outside into the crisp air. The lodge glowed behind me like warmth I wasn't allowed into. I sat on a bench, hands shaking. I could have called my mother. So I did. She answered immediately. "Claire, you made it. Isn't it beautiful?" I swallowed. "Mom, Hannah didn't save me a room." Silence. Then a soft sigh, like she was already tired of me. "Oh honey, she gave it away," I said, voice trembling. "To Mark's business partner." My mother's tone became gently firm, the way it always did when she wanted me to accept being second. "Well, he is important." There it was. The confirmation. My chest tightened. "I'm her sister. And he's part of Mark's future," Mom replied. "This wedding is about connections. Connections. Not family. Not love. Status." My voice cracked. "So where do I sleep?" My mother paused. "Can't you just get a small place nearby? It's only a weekend. Only a weekend. Only humiliation. Only being reminded, again, that I was optional." I whispered, "You're defending her." Mom's voice sharpened slightly. "Claire, don't ruin this. Hannah has enough stress." Stop making everything about you. Everything about me. As if wanting a bed was selfish. As if dignity was drama. I hung up without answering. My hands were shaking now, but something else was rising underneath. Not tears. Not pleading. A quiet, bitter clarity. I wasn't forgotten. I was dismissed. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked down the road until I found the only place with availability. A tiny hostel. One room. Thin walls. A humming heater. A bed that smelled faintly of bleach. The receptionist handed me a key with a bored look. Wedding weekend? She asked. I forced a smile. Yeah, I said. She nodded knowingly, like she'd seen 1,000 people come here as afterthoughts. That night, while the lodge filled with laughter and champagne, I lay staring at the ceiling. I could hear music in the distance. My sister's perfect weekend. And me? I was in a cheap room like a stranger. Something inside me shifted then. Not into rage. Into resolve. Because this wasn't the first time Hannah had taken something meant for me. My parents had always praised her louder. Forgiven her faster. Centered her. And I had always been expected to understand. To shrink. To be grateful for scraps. But as I lay there, humiliation burning in my throat, I realized something terrifyingly simple. If I stayed, I would keep being the one without a room. Not just at the lodge. In the family. The next morning, I attended the wedding events with a polite smile. I showed up for photos. I clapped at the rehearsal dinner. I let Hannah's bridesmaids talk around me like I was furniture. Hannah barely looked at me. My mother praised the beautiful weekend. And I smiled. Because none of them understood what silence meant. They thought silence was surrender. They didn't know silence was me deciding. That weekend ended. The wedding happened. Hannah glowed. Mark kissed her. Everyone cheered. And I stood at the edge of the crowd like a ghost. Then I left. No dramatic goodbye. No fight. No confrontation. Just gone. I returned to my life, my city, my work. And I stopped calling. Stopped trying. Stopped showing up. Weeks became months. Months became over a year. They assumed I'd come back eventually. Because I always did. But this time, I didn't. And while they lived inside their comfort, I rebuilt myself quietly. I took a promotion. I moved into a new apartment. I invested in my own future. And I learned the most powerful revenge wasn't shouting. It was disappearing. Then, one afternoon, more than a year later, my phone buzzed. Hannah's name. I stared at it. For a long moment, I didn't answer. Then I did. Her voice was tight. Claire, where have you been? I smiled faintly. Living, I said. A pause. Then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. Mom's in trouble. And we need you. Need. After all this time, they needed me. For a moment, I didn't speak. The word need hung in the air like a hook. After all the silence. After all the dismissal. Now they needed me. What kind of trouble? I asked calmly. Hannah exhaled shakily. It's complicated. Just, can you come home? Home. That word felt strange coming from her. The last time I'd been home, I was sleeping in a hostel while she toasted under chandeliers. I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the city skyline outside my apartment window. My life looked nothing like the one I'd had at that lodge. It was cleaner, stronger, mine. What happened? I asked again. Hannah's voice tightened. Mark's business partner, you remember him? Of course I remembered him. The man who deserved my bed because he was a big deal. Yes, I said. Well, he offered to help Mom with an investment. My stomach tightened slightly. An investment, I repeated. Hannah rushed forward, trying to sound confident. It was supposed to be amazing. A fast return. Mom put money in. A lot of money. I could already see where this was going. And now? I asked quietly. Silence. Then Hannah whispered, it's gone. The word hit like a dull thud. Gone? He says the market shifted, Hannah said quickly. That it's temporary. But Mom took out a second mortgage. She borrowed against the house. My chest went cold. The house. The only thing my parents ever truly owned outright. The house my father built his pride into. And you want me to fix it, I murmured. Hannah's voice sharpened slightly with desperation. Claire, you're smart. You work in finance. You know contracts. You could talk to him. Maybe pressure him. I laughed softly, not out of humor but disbelief. You gave him my room, I said. And now you want me to pressure him? Hannah snapped, that was over a year ago. Yes, I replied calmly. And you never apologized. Silence. Then her voice dropped, smaller. We didn't think you'd disappear. I closed my eyes briefly. They never thought I'd leave for real. Because in their minds, I existed in the background like furniture, always there, always available, never central. I opened my eyes. Send me the details, I said. Hannah inhaled sharply, relieved. So you'll come? I didn't say that, I corrected softly. Another pause. Then Hannah whispered, please. Mom is falling apart. Falling apart. The guilt tugged at me, automatic and sharp. But then I remembered my mother's voice at the lodge. He's important. This wedding is about connections. Stop making everything about you. I exhaled. Send me the paperwork, I repeated. She did within minutes. A PDF. Loan documents. Investment agreements. A signature at the bottom. Mom's handwriting. And above it, the name of the business partner. Graham Lockwood. The same man. I stared at it. My pulse slowed into something colder than anger. Because I recognized something immediately. Those documents weren't investments. They were traps. The language was vague. The guarantees non-existent. The fees outrageous. It wasn't a deal. It was a con. My mother had been scammed. And my sister had helped open the door. That night, I didn't sleep. I read every line. I made calls. Not to my family. To people who actually mattered now. Because in the year I disappeared, I hadn't been idle. I'd been building. I'd taken the promotion Hannah never asked about. I'd become director of compliance at a private lending firm. A firm that regulated exactly the kind of investment partnerships Graham Lockwood claimed to run. I knew the industry. And I knew predators. By morning, I had confirmation. Graham Lockwood was under investigation already. Multiple complaints. Multiple families. He moved through weddings, galas, charity events, sniffing out desperate people with assets and pride. And my mother had been easy prey. At 9 a.m., my phone rang again. Mom. I stared at it for a long moment. Then answered. Claire, she sobbed immediately. Thank God. Hannah said you'd help. Her voice sounded older than I remembered. Worn down. I swallowed hard. What happened? I asked gently, though I already knew. Mom cried harder. I thought it was safe. Hannah said he was respectable. He was Mark's friend. I didn't want to be a burden. A burden. The irony almost broke me. I kept my voice steady. How much? She inhaled shakily. 200,000. Then, another 80. I borrowed against the house because he promised it would double. My stomach twisted. My mother had risked everything for validation from someone important. I whispered, did Dad know? Silence. Then she whispered back, your father can't know. Of course. Pride first. Always. Mom continued, voice pleading. Claire, please. I'm scared. Graham says if we cause trouble, we'll lose even more. Hannah says you should just talk to him calmly. Calmly. Like they'd asked me to sleep calmly in a hostel. I closed my eyes. I'm going to handle it, I said. Mom's sobbing eased slightly. You'll come home? I exhaled. Yes, I said finally. A beat. But not for what you think. 2 days later, I drove back to the lodge town. The same winding roads. The same pine trees. Only this time, I wasn't arriving with a garment bag and hope. I was arriving with documents, authority, and something far more dangerous. Clarity. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, Hannah was waiting outside like a nervous child. She rushed forward. Claire. She stopped short when she saw my expression. I looked different, not physically, but in the way I stood. In the way I wasn't shrinking. Hannah swallowed. Thank you for coming. I nodded once. Where is he? Her face tightened. Graham? He's coming tonight. For dinner. Dinner. Of course. Everything humiliating in this family happened at dinner. Mom appeared in the doorway, eyes swollen. She stepped forward hesitantly. Claire. I looked at her. She opened her arms slightly, unsure. I didn't move. Her arms fell. I'm sorry, she whispered. The apology sounded fragile, unfinished. For what? I asked softly. Her lips trembled. For not protecting you. Silence. Hannah shifted uncomfortably. Mom continued, voice breaking. At the lodge? I should have taken your side. My throat tightened. But you didn't, I said. Mom nodded, tears falling. I didn't. And now, I understand what it cost. I didn't respond. Because understanding after consequences isn't bravery. It's aftermath. That evening, the dining table was set. The same kind of performance, just smaller. Mom barely touched her food. Hannah kept glancing at the clock. Then, at 7:18 p.m., the doorbell rang. Hannah jumped. Mom's hands shook. I stood calmly. I'll get it, I said. I opened the door. Graham Lockwood stood there with a charming smile, expensive coat, polished confidence. The same kind of man who walked into rooms and took what he wanted. His gaze landed on me. Oh, he said smoothly. You must be Claire. I smiled faintly. Yes, I replied. He extended his hand. I've heard you've been away. I didn't take his hand. I've been watching, I corrected softly. His smile faltered for half a second. Then he recovered. Well, it's good you're here. Family finances can be messy. Messy. Like theft. He stepped inside, unaware that the trap was already closing. Because Graham Lockwood thought he'd come to collect more. He had no idea. He was walking into my jurisdiction. Graham Lockwood walked into my parents' dining room like he belonged there. He didn't glance around the way normal guests do. He didn't hesitate. He moved with the ease of a man who had spent his entire life taking up space in other people's homes. He smiled at my mother first, soft and reassuring. Mrs. Bennet, he said warmly, you look much better than you sounded on the phone. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her napkin. I've been worried, she whispered. Graham chuckled, the sound perfectly practiced. Oh please. Worry is unnecessary. Markets fluctuate. This is all temporary. Hannah nodded too quickly, desperate for comfort. Yes, exactly, she agreed. Claire just wanted to understand everything. Graham's gaze slid back to me. His smile was polite, but his eyes were sharp now. Of course, he said. It's good to have a smart sister involved. Smart sister. Like a compliment. Like a leash. He took his seat at the table as if he were the host. Dinner began with forced small talk. Graham spoke about exclusive partnerships, private returns, elite opportunities. Every sentence was wrapped in superiority. My mother listened like a drowning person listening to a lifeguard. Hannah watched him like a celebrity. I watched him like evidence. Finally, Graham set down his fork and sighed dramatically. Mrs. Bennet, he said, voice gentle, I know the numbers feel frightening. But I promise, your money is safe. My mother's voice cracked. When will it come back? Graham's smile tightened. Soon, he said smoothly. But only if we don't disrupt the process. There it was. The hook. Fear plus silence. Then he leaned in slightly. You understand, if lawyers become involved, it complicates things. Regulators start asking questions. Funds get delayed. My mother's face went pale. Hannah whispered, we don't want that. Graham nodded approvingly. Exactly. The best thing is patience. Then he glanced at me again. And perhaps, he added casually, a little additional capital to stabilize the position. The room went still. My mother's breath caught. Hannah blinked. Additional, she whispered. Graham spread his hands. Just temporarily. Another 50,000. It would secure the recovery. There it was. He wasn't fixing anything. He was feeding. My mother's lips trembled. I don't have. Hannah cut in quickly, panicked. We could borrow. Maybe from the house again. My stomach turned. That was his real plan. Strip them down to nothing. I placed my fork down gently. The sound was small, but it snapped the room into attention. Graham turned to me. Claire, he said softly, you've been quiet. I smiled faintly. I've been listening. He chuckled. That's good. Then you understand why we shouldn't overreact. I nodded slowly. Oh, I said. I understand perfectly. Graham's smile widened, relieved. Then I reached beside my chair and lifted a folder onto the table. Thick. Official. Graham's eyes flickered. What's that? I opened it calmly. And slid the first document forward. Compliance notice. Formal investigation initiated. Graham blinked. His smile faltered slightly. What is this? I didn't answer yet. I slid the second page. Multiple fraud complaints. Graham Lockwood entity flagged. His jaw tightened. Claire, he said, voice sharper, I don't know what game you think you're playing. I slid the third page. Account freeze order, effective immediately. The air left the room. My mother gasped. Hannah's hand flew to her mouth. Graham's face drained of color. What? He whispered. I leaned back slightly, voice calm. You said regulators complicate things. His eyes snapped up, furious. You called regulators? I smiled. No. I tapped the top of the folder. They called you. Silence. Graham's breathing turned shallow. My mother whispered, shaking. Claire, what did you do? I looked at her gently. I did what you should have done the moment you realized something was wrong. Then I turned back to Graham. You've been operating under an unlicensed private lending structure, I said evenly. You've solicited funds under false promises. And you've targeted vulnerable families through social connections. Graham's voice rose, panicked now. That's not true. This is investment risk. I held up a hand. Stop. The single word cut through him. He froze. Because he recognized it. The tone. The authority. I continued calmly. I work for Ardent Ridge Compliance. His eyes widened. That name meant something in his world. It was the firm that worked with federal oversight. The firm that could end people like him. Graham swallowed hard. I nodded. Director of Compliance. Hannah's mouth opened. My mother stared at me like she didn't know who I was. Graham's voice cracked. You're lying. I slid the final document across the table. Identity confirmation, signed by counsel. His hands trembled. He didn't touch it. He didn't need to. He could already see the truth. This wasn't a sister begging. This wasn't a family hoping. This was jurisdiction. Graham's charm cracked completely. You can't do this, he hissed. You'll ruin me. I tilted my head. You ruined yourself when you walked into weddings looking for people to bleed. His face twisted with rage. You think you're better than them? I leaned forward slightly. No, I said softly. I think you picked the wrong family. Hannah whispered, stunned. Claire, you did all this? I looked at her. I disappeared, I said quietly. And while you were busy celebrating people you thought were important. I paused. I became someone you can't ignore. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Oh my God? Graham pushed back his chair abruptly. This is harassment, he snapped. I'll sue. I smiled faintly. You can try. Then I leaned closer, voice dropping. But if you do, I tapped the folder. These documents go public. His throat bobbed. He knew. He was finished. My mother's voice trembled. What about my money? Graham's eyes flickered toward her, cold now, mask gone. It's gone, he muttered. Hannah gasped like she'd been stabbed. My mother made a broken sound. And something inside me softened, not for Graham, but for her. Then Graham grabbed his coat, moving toward the door. I spoke softly behind him. One more thing. He froze without turning. I continued calmly. You will not contact my family again. His voice came out bitter. Or what? I smiled. Or I'll make sure you never walk into another lodge, another dinner, another wedding. I paused. As anything but a criminal. Silence. Then he left. The door shut. The house felt suddenly too quiet. My mother sobbed into her hands. Hannah sat frozen, pale and trembling. And I sat there, calm. Because the predator was gone. The danger was gone. Only the truth remained. After a long moment, my mother whispered through tears. Claire, I didn't know. I looked at her. You didn't want to know, I said gently. She flinched. Hannah's voice cracked. I thought you'd always come back. I nodded slowly. That's why you treated me like I had no room. Silence. Then Hannah whispered, broken. I'm sorry. It was the first real apology I'd ever heard from her. My mother looked up, tears streaming. I failed you. I didn't deny it. I simply exhaled. I didn't disappear to punish you, I said softly. I disappeared to save myself. Julian had once told me revenge wasn't shouting. It was truth. And tonight, truth had finally entered this house. I stood slowly. Hannah flinched, as if expecting anger. But I wasn't angry. I was finished. I picked up my coat. My mother's voice trembled. Will you stay? I looked at her. At the woman who defended my humiliation. At the woman who finally understood what it cost. I'll visit, I said quietly. But I will never be the one without a room again. Hannah sobbed softly. I walked to the door. The night air outside was crisp, clean. Behind me, my family sat in the wreckage of their choices. And me? I walked forward, not as an afterthought, not as a leftover, as the woman who vanished. And returned impossible to ignore.